All right, turning now to a new law that just went into effect in New York State. Starting today, childhood victims of sexual abuse can sue their perpetrators. The law, the Child Victims Act, applies to victims who were previously barred from suing due to the statute of limitations. The law gives victims 1 year to file those cases starting today. As of the close of business today, 427 cases were filed pursuant to the Child Victims Act, according to a tally by NBC News. The defendants in those lawsuits include the Roman Catholic Church, the Boy Scouts, and the late Jeffrey Epstein.
I just did what he told me to do. I was really scared. I didn't necessarily think that he was, going to rape me.
Did he hold you there?
Yeah.
Did Jeffrey Epstein rape you?
Yeah, no, he raped me. Forcefully raped me, but knew exactly what he was doing.
Today, that individual, Jennifer Arose, filed one of the first civil lawsuits against the estate of Jeffrey Epstein, saying he raped her when she was 15 years old and alleging his co-conspirators groomed her for sex when she was 14 years old as part of his sex trafficking ring. The co-conspirators alleged in the lawsuit include Ghislaine Maxwell, Mr. Epstein's longtime confidant, and Jane Doe's 1 through 3, who are 3 unnamed household staffers referred to in the lawsuit as the recruiter, the secretary, and the maid. Additional civil suits against Jeffrey Epstein's estate are likely. Meanwhile, despite his death, the criminal investigation into his alleged co-conspirators is ongoing. That criminal investigation by the Southern District of New York is overseen by the Justice Department and Attorney General William Barr. Our next guest, former U.S. Attorney Joyce Vance, has called on Barr to recuse himself with regard to the Epstein investigation. Joyce Vance is also an MSNBC legal analyst. She joins us now. Joyce, what's the basis on which you are calling for William Barr to recuse himself?
So I should be clear, Ali, that I don't make the argument because I believe that Barr is actually going to recuse. I think the sad reality here is that he won't. But the reason he should recuse is because he has both conflicts of interest, conflicts that he has apparently decided don't warrant recusal, but also those conflicts give rise to an appearance of impropriety. That means that people in the public can't have confidence that he's a neutral decision maker. And when you have someone like that in a position of control over an important investigation like the one into Epstein's death and the ongoing criminal cases, it causes the public to lose confidence in the Justice Department. DOJ's already stretched too thin. We can't afford to have any more loss in its reputation and integrity.
What's the conflict that you see that he's got?
He has a number of conflicts, starting with the fact that at his confirmation hearing, he indicated that his former law firm had done some work on behalf of Epstein, and he would look into whether that warranted recusal. But also, Alex Acosta, his former colleague, the former labor secretary, was involved in the plea agreement down in Florida for Acosta, which has caused so much concern. Their relationship certainly is some form of a conflict. And then we have this really curious family detail that the Attorney General's father hired a very young Jeffrey Epstein when he was a college dropout to teach calculus and physics at the prep school that he was the headmaster of in New York City. So even if these aren't a formal recusal conflict issue, in combination, they create such an appearance of impropriety. The Attorney General should have stepped away and let the Deputy Attorney General or someone else oversee this matter.
Republican Senator Ben Sasse has called upon the Department of Justice to take that deal that was cut in Florida, the one that led up the investigation into that, the reporting from the Miami Herald, and rip it up. Tell me about that. Is that even doable?
What really needs to happen here is a full-on investigation into what happened and perhaps an investigation by the Office of Professional Responsibility. You can't really be the government and rip up a plea agreement down the road in the absence of very unusual circumstances.
Because that affects your ability to make other deals.
Well, it does, and also the rules of criminal procedure very strongly favor the finality of plea agreements. So you can't walk in down the road a decade later and say, I take it back. But that doesn't mean that if you're someone who's engaged in criminal conduct, that you can't be prosecuted in this case, other federal districts or even by state jurisdictions. So it's not like the government is without a way of dealing with the error that was made in the plea agreement, or would have been had Epstein not died in prison.
You know, usually prosecutors, when you're trying to get somebody at the head of something, work your way up. You find people who are junior to that person and get them to turn or get them to somehow testify. Now, in this case, because Jeffrey Epstein is gone, we have been hearing since day one that there are other people involved in this thing. Does the investigation that was underway with Jeffrey Epstein, does that die and does that have to start again? And why hasn't something happened already, given that we do know that there are other people who are consistently referred to by these alleged victims?
So in a federal case, when a defendant dies, a criminal case, the prosecution comes to an end. That's true even if Epstein had been convicted at trial and the case had been on appeal and he had died on appeal. The death of a defendant signals the end of that case. As you point out, though, Epstein was charged as a co-conspirator in a sex trafficking conspiracy. Presumably, that means that there are other people out there who are criminally culpable conspirators. And I expect, based on the statement made by the U.S. Attorney in Southern District of New York, that at the point where he believes he has sufficient evidence to convict those co-conspirators, he intends to move forward even with Epstein no longer in the picture.
Joyce, thank you for joining us, as always. Joyce Vance.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.